Got it. There we go. We're going to take advantage of the fact that this week's Parsha deals with Nedarim. As a matter of fact, the entire opening of the Parsha revolves around Nedarim. Interestingly enough, the main focus of the Parsha of Nedarim is about the neder that one's wife makes, or one's daughter, or a widow, or a divorcee, or somewhere there. If you look really, really close, you might find it saying something about a neder that you make yourself. But that's only if you look really, really closely. But we're going to take advantage of the fact that this week's Parsha deals with Nedarim, and the Gemara that we learned, right, Eric? That we learned in Rosh Hashanah, that when we learned it, I said, B'li Neder, I would try to explain when we got to this week. And I'm referring to the Gemara in Rosh Hashanah on Davav. The Gemara says as follows. Amar Rabbi Yochanan v'iteimer Rabbi Lazar, ein ishtei shel adam meisa ela im kein mevakshim imenu mamain ve'ein lo. A person's wife doesn't die on him unless they come collecting money from him and he acts as if he does not have, or he actually doesn't have. Shene'emar, as the pasuk says, im ein lechol l'shalem loma yikach mishkovcha mitachtecha. If you do not have with what to pay, or if you act as if you do not have with what to pay, why should mishkovcha, why should that which lays with you be taken from beneath you? And that's what the Gemara says. So, ein ishtei shel adam meisa ela im kein mevaksh mimenu mam. Now, the context of this Gemara is in terms of the Isra of Baal Ta'acher. The Torah says that when a person takes a neder, not only is there a mitzvah asay that he has to fulfill the neder, but there's also a mitzvah loisa asay not to delay the bringing of the neder. Now, here, the Gemara doesn't actually talk about Nedarim or Baal Ta'acher. Here, the Gemara just says it almost in a very vague fashion. The Gemara says, Ela in kain mevakshim mimenu mamain ve'ein lo. They come to collect the money, and he does not have it. Either he doesn't have it, or he acts as if he doesn't have it. But the Gemara doesn't say explicitly that we're talking about Nedarim. We only know that we're talking about Nedarim because of the context of the Gemara. Since the Gemara is talking about Baal Ta'acher, so Memela, we automatically assume that the mamain that they're coming to collect, that he's saying he doesn't have, is the money of a neder that was made. Taisvis, on the spot, I'm sorry, I'm just going to mute everybody, if you don't mind. Taisvis on the spot deals with this question, and I'm going to read Taisvis in its entirety because there are 2 points in this Taisvis that I want to focus on. The first point is as follows. Taisvis says, B'seif Perek Sheni Dizvachim, where this Gemara is also quoted, Pirush Bakuntris, Rashi explained that the Mevakshim Mimenu Maman, that the money that they're coming to collect, that he's saying he doesn't have, is referring to Maman Shel Gezel, money that he has stolen. That's the way Rashi explains it over there in Zvachim. Says Taisvis of Valnire, but from our Gemara it seems, Demayri Beneder, that we're talking about a neder. And he proves it, Kedemuchach beperek b'memadlikin, as is explained in Perek b'madlikin, the Tani Rabbi Nosson Eimer, ba'ovain nedarim meisa ishtei shel adam, that it is specifically for the sin of non-fulfillment of an oath that the wife dies. Shenemar me'in l'chol l'shalim loma yikach mishkovcha mitachtecha. That's point number one. Rashi explains that the moment that we're talking about refers to moment of gezel, money that he has stolen. Says Taisvis, that might be a pshat, but it certainly can't be the pshat over here because the context doesn't allow for us to see it as being moment of gezel. The context implies that we are dealing with Nedarim. Person takes an oath, he doesn't pay the oath, Memela ishtay shalodam is mesa. That's point number one that Taisus makes. Then Taisus gets on to the next point, because the whole thing that the Gemara is trying to prove over here is that unlike the avon of Nedarim, unlike the sin of not paying your neder, where there indeed we say that ishtay shalodam is mesa, here we're darshaning the pasuk v'haya b'chachet, that you shall carry the weight of your sin. The Gemara over here is darshaning v'loi b'ishta chachet, and not your wife. That is to say that our Gemara, which is dealing with Baal Ta'acher specifically, this penalty that ishtay shalodam is mesa does not apply to Baal Ta'acher. It only applies if you don't pay it up. But if you're merely guilty of Baal Ta'acher, then indeed your wife doesn't die. And Taisus points that out, and this is point number two. The had, the darish hacha, and that which we darshan here, specifically in our Gemara, b'chachet v'lo b'ishta chachet, Mayri, that's talking about b'mishalim acharkach, where ultimately you are paying it up. It's just ela she'avar b'bal ta'acher, you just delayed in its payment. That is to say that the Gemara is saying you might have had a havamina, that because when a person is actually non-compliant with his oath, the penalty is ishtay shalodam is mesa. You might have thought that that should work even if you merely delayed it and transgressed bal ta'acher. Kamashmul on the pasuk v'haya b'chachet, in you is the chet v'loy b'ishta chachet. Says Taisus, that's because we're talking about that ultimately you did pay it. And so Taisus is making 2 points. A, Rashi learns mevakshim mimenu momen ve'ein like to be referring to gezel, but clearly that can't be what we're talking about over here. B, Baal Ta'acher is different than an actual neder that was not fulfilled, because even though it's true that by a neder that was not fulfilled, the penalty is v'haya, the ishtay shalodam is mesa. Over here by Baal Ta'acher, the ishtay shalodam is not mesa. And the havamina is what? That Baal Ta'acher should have been the same as an actual neder that wasn't paid. And we need to understand both of these points. A, Rashi did learn that it's gezel. Rashi wasn't oblivious to our Gemara here. Rashi knew that the Gemara over here is talking about Baal Ta'acher, and nonetheless, Rashi still felt comfortable explaining that it means gezel. Why is that? Why would Rashi see fit to explain that the words mevakshim mimenu momen ve'ein lo, that they come collecting the money and he doesn't have, or he says he doesn't have? Rashi is comfortable saying that that's talking about gezel, even though l'maisa, the context of the Gemara is Baal Ta'acher. And that needs to be explained. What is Rashi thinking? He wasn't oblivious to the context. And number two is, Taisus is pointing out that thanks to the pasuk of v'haya b'chachet v'loy b'ishta chachet, thanks to the pasuk, we know that this penalty only is a penalty for someone who hasn't paid it out. But a person who pays it out, he just pays it out late, then this penalty doesn't apply. And that havamina also needs to be understood. Why would that be? Meaning, why would I need a pasuk to tell me that where he ultimately pays it out, the penalty of ishtay shalodam mesa doesn't apply, when l'maisa, the pasuk says that im ein l'chol l'shalim, if you say that you don't have with what to pay, the whole entire pasuk is only talking about where the person isn't paying. And therefore, there shouldn't need to be a pasuk to tell me v'haya b'chachet v'loy b'ishta chachet, because what's the havamina that it would? That's not what the pasuk was talking about, right? Im ein l'chol l'shalim implies that you don't have with what to pay, meaning you're putting on a show. You don't have with what to pay. You're not paying. There, ishtay shalodam is mesa. But if I am paying, then there's no reason for me to entertain even as a possibility that ishtay shalodam would die. Yet, says Taisus, no, that's exactly what the Gemara is doing over here. And this is not Taisus, it's the Gemara. Says the Gemara, that means that there's a havamina that for Baal Ta'acher, even though ultimately you are going to pay up, But there's a havamina that for Baal Ta'achir, this penalty would also apply. That Ishtay Shalodam is Mesa. Kamash Malon V'hoya B'chochet. And the question is, what's the havamina? Why? Why would that be? Mela, you want to tell me, a person doesn't do as he swore that he would do, so that's a terrible aveira. For that, you deserve this type of a penalty. But here, I didn't do that. I am going to pay. I'm just paying a little bit late. No, so why would I even have a havamina that it should be? That I need a pasuk to come along and tell me that it isn't. That means that for some reason, the Gemara actually is entertaining as a true havamina that Baal Ta'acher and total non-compliance are exactly the same. And that in the same way that it makes sense that Ishtay Shalodam should be Mesa for total non-compliance, Ishtay Shalodam should be Mesa also for Baal Ta'acher. Kamash Malon B'hoya B'chochet. Special Gzeir Sakosav. No, it doesn't apply. But that means that there's a real havamina. And the question is what? What's the havamina? They don't seem to be anything the same at all. And so these 2 points need to be understood. What is it that Rashi is thinking? And what is it that the Gemara is thinking? What's the Gemara's havamina for which it's demanding a pasuk to tell me that it doesn't apply to Baal Ta'acher? And I think that really what needs to be dealt with is not even so much the actual penalty itself, that Ishtay Shalodam is Mesa, that a person's wife dies. I think what needs to really be understood is, why is it that when a person takes a neder and doesn't pay it up, why is it that that is considered an aveira of such severity that it warrants such an extreme penalty? And let me explain why I say that that is the main focus of the question. When the Gemara says Ishtay Shalodam Mesa, the Gemara doesn't mean the actual death itself alone. That's not the focus of the Gemara at all. Haraya, I'll prove it. Everybody is familiar with the fact that there are 2 mitzvahs asay that are the exception to the rule and carry a kares penalty. The general rule is that every chiyuv kares is on the transgression of a mitzvahs lo yisaseh. The Torah says, do not eat chametz on Pesach. You transgress that and eat chametz on Pesach, there's a chiyuv kares. The Torah says, don't eat on Yom Kippur. You transgress that, you do eat on Yom Kippur, there's a kares penalty. That's the general rule. There are 2 exceptions to that general rule. One exception is Korban Pesach. A Jew who could have brought the Korban Pesach at its rightful time and doesn't, there is a kares penalty for that. And the other exception is Bris Milah. A Jew who could have had bris milah, meaning it wasn't a danger to his life, and doesn't get a bris milah, there's a kares penalty for that too. Those are the 2 exceptions to the general rule that every chiyuv kares is for a mitzvah lo yisaseh. The Rambam already points out that there is still a huge difference between these 2 exceptions. Because regarding Korban Pesach, the moment that the 14th day of Nisan is passed, that's when the kares will hit you. That's when you have gotten the penalty of kares. Because the chiyuv is to bring the Korban Pesach on the 14th day of Nisan. You didn't bring it on the 14th day of Nisan. True, it's only a mitzvah asay. Nonetheless, it's a mitzvah asay that carries a kares penalty. So when the 14th day of Nisan comes to an end and you have not as of yet brought the Korban Pesach, you can't any longer. That's when you have now become chayiv kares. However, bris milah is totally different. Bris milah, at what moment will I have actually gotten the chiyuv kares? You can't say that I got the chiyuv kares today because I could still do bris milah tomorrow. And if I do bris milah tomorrow, then I've never transgressed so as to get a chiyuv kares. Okay, so you'll tell me no problem, you'll get a kares tomorrow. No, I can't get kares tomorrow either. Why not? Because I could still do bris milah the day after. And then I never transgressed the asay. I was never non-compliant with the asay so as to get a chiyuv kares. So you say, okay, fine. So then you get kares the next day. No, because the day after that I could still do, etc., etc., etc. Therefore, says the Rambam, obviously, when will the Chi of Koris take effect? When the person is dying. Once he has come to the moment of death, which means that he can no longer ever fulfill the mitzvahs aseh of bris milah, that's when the Chi of Koris takes effect. You hear why that is? It's pashut. Because in Ochanami, until that moment, it's not definite that I'm going to, right? It's not definite that I'm not going to be in compliance with the mitzvah saseh, because I could still do it the next day. Memela comes out that the Chi of Koris only happens at the moment of death. So says the Rambam, and good. Tosfos just told me that for Baal Ta'acher, Ishtay Shel Adam is not Mesa. The Gemara told me this. We need a special Gzeir Sakosif to tell you that even though for an actual non-payment of a neder, there is Ishtay Shel Adam Mesa, but for Baal Ta'acher, Kamashal on the Pasuk, that there's no Ishtay Shel Adam Mesa. Good. So tell me, when exactly is Ishtay Shel Adam going to be Mesa? When will it happen? I didn't pay today. Good, I'll pay tomorrow. And then it was only Baal Ta'acher. If I paid tomorrow, I did pay up. I just transgressed Baal Ta'acher, not to delay. But I did pay up. Oh, so then she can't die yet. Fine, so then she'll die tomorrow. No, because I could pay the next day. And then if I pay the next day, weiter, it's only Baal Ta'acher, not non-compliance with the neder, etc., etc. That means that when is Ishtay Shel Adam ever going to be Mesa? Only at his moment of death, when he can no longer fulfill the neder. That's when Ishtay Shel Adam will be Mesa? So I know you're all thinking, you guys are all big lamdonim, you're thinking, no. Here's how it works. The guy made a neder that he's going to pay by a certain moment. So then when that moment comes and he hasn't paid, so now he's mamish transgressed. That's when Ishtay Shel Adam is Mesa. The problem is that that's not true. Because good, you're still over on the fact that you didn't fulfill it, right? You're non-compliant with the asay, but should you pay it later on, it's still just Baal Ta'acher. Memela the V'hoya b'chochet v'loy b'ishtachochet, which Tosfos so nicely points out, tells me that even though you would have had a havamina, that for Baal Ta'acher there should also be this penalty of Ishtay Shel Adam is Mesa. No, kamashmal on the pasuk v'hoya b'chochet, that Ishtay Shel Adam is not Mesa for Baal Ta'acher. No good. So then that means that pretty much in any neder, it'll never actually come to pass that Ishtay Shel Adam is Mesa, because all I have to do is pay the neder tomorrow. And if I paid the neder tomorrow, that means that I was only transgressing on Baal Ta'acher, which means that there's no Ishtay Shel Adam Mesa, as Tosfos points out from our Gemara. So then I ask you, when exactly is Ishtay Shel Adam going to be Mesa? Oh, at the moment of his death. Shkoyach. It's at the moment of his death. That's when it will happen. Good, but then it's not Ishtay Shel Adam anymore because he's dead. So therefore, it becomes clear that the Ishtay Shel Adam Mesa, the actual death of the person, is not what the Gemara is trying to stress over here. That's clear. What the Gemara is trying to stress over here is that there is something that happens that fundamentally corrodes away the marriage, and that therefore ultimately Ishtay Shel Adam is Mesa, not necessarily literally and not necessarily figuratively, but that as far as the marriage is concerned, this wife is no longer part of his life. That's clear that must be what the Gemara is saying. Harai, what I just said. Otherwise, it's always going to be Baal Ta'acher. When would you ever have a chance to have this penalty meted out against you? You hear? So therefore, the focus isn't why does the wife die for the sins of the husband? Because that's not really what the Gemara is trying to point out at all. Really what the Gemara is trying to point out is how severe it is that one takes a neder and doesn't pay it up, that it warrants such an extreme response. That's the real focus of the Gemara. And we have to explain not only what is it about taking a neder and not wanting to pay it up that should even warrant this type of a response, this type of an extreme response, but why is it that the extremity of the response is being packaged, is being expressed in this form that ishtay shel adam mesa, that the man's wife dies? That's really what needs to be the focus. And so I think in order for us to come to a little bit of clarity in this matter, we have to recognize a very interesting point. And that is the pasuk that the Gemara is darshan. The Gemara says again, let's listen carefully to the pasuk. Says Rabbi Yechon v'itemer Rabbi Lazar, ein ishtay shel adam mesa ela im kein mevaksh mimenu mamin ve'ein. What? I don't understand what you meant, Ramesha, but okay. What's the pasuk that the Gemara darshans? Im ein lechol shalem lama yikach mishkavcha mitachtecha. If you don't have with what to pay, or you're claiming that you don't have with what to pay, why should your thing that you lay on be taken away from beneath you? Now, you guys are all familiar with the almost the rule of the thumb, which is that we always try to express ourselves in what is called a lashon nakiya. Gemara in Pesachim learns this. Our chachamim always express themselves in a lashon nakiya. We use what's called metaphor, or we express ourselves using all sort of euphemisms in order to avoid speaking in a form that's graphic and borders on crass. And therefore we have to wonder, why of all words that the pasuk could have used to refer to a person's wife, does it refer to it in such a crass term? Lama yikach mishkavcha mitachtecha, that which you lay upon. Such a derogatory way of expressing a man's wife, the thing that he lays on, it's extremely derogatory and very, very crass. And our Chachamim, and certainly the pasuk itself, as Chazal say that HaKadosh Baruch Hu was ma'akin yud gimel oisiyos, to refer to the behema that's not tahar as a behema asher einena tahira, instead of calling it a behema tumeya, for the sole purpose of trying to avoid using terminology that's more crass. Why then would the pasuk over here refer to one's wife without using a euphemism? Say something nice, say, I don't know, or hey, why not call her his wife? That would have worked. You could have said, Lama yikach ishtecha mitachtecha. That would have worked nicely. I think that would be a word that everybody would have understood. Instead, the pasuk goes out of its way to use a euphemism instead of referring to her as your wife. Instead, the pasuk uses a euphemism that is the most crass way of referring to her altogether. Lama yikach mishkavcha mitachtecha, that which you lay upon, why should that be taken from beneath you? That's something that we need to understand. And I think, though, that fact that the Torah, the pasuk, chose to use a word that is that crass is the key to understanding what it is about Nedarim and what it is specifically about the saying, I don't have the money with which to pay, that warrants such an extreme reaction, the one that is expressed as Yikach Mishkavcha Mitachtecha. Additionally, there's a Gemara, believe it or not, in Nedarim. And the Gemara in Nedarim says like this. It's Gemara Nedarim and Daf Chaf. The Gemara says a woman came to Rebbe and she says to him that Shulchan arachti lebayli, I set a table for my husband, v'hafcha, and he flipped it over. And Rebbe's answer to her, that's a nice euphemism, right? She's not crass, she's not being graphic, she's using a metaphor. I set a table and he turned it over. And Rebbe says, listen, what can I do for you? What can I do for you, my daughter? A man's wife is permissible to him however he wants. Now, Rashi learns that Shulchan arachti lebayli, that I set a table for my husband, v'hafcha, and he turned it over. Says Rashi, this is a euphemism for a bia shaloi kedarka. That's why Rashi learns it. The Ravid, however, learns very, very differently. The Ravid holds no, bia shaloi kedarka is asur, no matter what. What she was trying to say over here is that he changed the positions. La halacha, the position that a man and his wife have to take is that the woman is on the bottom and the man is on top. And she set the table in that fashion. V'hafcha, he turned it around. So that the positions were the reverse. Now you understand that if we're going to learn like the Ravid, this pasuk, Lama yikach mishkavcha mitachtecha, could then refer to the reverse also. That is to say, that we could say that if a woman takes a neder and is non-paying with the neder, then the same penalty could happen to her. That baila would be mace on her, because it's the same pasuk. Loma yikach mishkavcha mitachtecha. According to the Ravid, that mishkavcha mitachtecha could be referring also to the husband. And that's mutter lahalacha, says the Ravid. Right? To have that type of a switch would be mutter lahalacha, according to the Ravid. So it comes out that according to the Ravid, the pasuk of Lama yikach mishkavcha mitachtecha could also be applicable in the reverse. Which means that all the more so that there is something about Nedarim and the union of marriage that somehow overlap, and that somehow or another the willingness to be lax with the payment of your Nedarim and the loss of the marriage seem to be almost like a perfectly acceptable relationship. So that Loma yikach mishkavcha mitachtecha would work in either of the two directions. That's how it would come out, according to the Ravid, that it should be possible to say Loma yikach mishkavcha mitachtecha in both directions. And I think that, like I said, that this usage of the term mishkavcha, both in terms of the fact that it is a crass term, and also in the fact that it allows for us to see it even possibly being the same in the reverse, is the key to understanding what it is about the oven of Nedarim that makes it sensible that when a person is non-compliant with the neder, the marriage is seen as the arevus, the marriage takes the brunt of that, and that somehow being non-compliant with the neder results in the fraying of a marriage, no matter who's the guilty party and no matter what it means, ishtay shalad mesa, but whatever it is, there is something about the falling apart of a marriage which is intimately connected somehow or another to the fact that one of the parties is guilty of non-willingness to pay up the Nedarim. And the key to understanding this connection, I believe, comes from the fact that the pasuk went out of its way to use this crass term instead of using a finer, more refined, and less graphic term for one's sexual partner. And so in order for us to get this clarity and to understand what this is, I want to review some things that we have discussed in the past, but I think deserve to be reviewed yet again. Where the Torah says as follows: at the very end of Parshas Bereshis, Hashem starts describing the world falling apart. And the pasuk goes out of its way to explain exactly what happened. It says, "Vayihi ki heichel ha'adam l'roiv al pnei ha'adama uvanos yuldu lahem." Man started to multiply, and of course they had daughters. Vayiru v'neihu Elohim es b'nei ha'adam ki toiveseina. So the people of greater social position had the ability to check out and see which girls were very pretty. And so they went and they took for themselves wives from whatever it is that they wanted. It says Rashi, Mikol asher bacharu, from whatever it is that they chose. It says Rashi, Af be'ulas baal, even a married woman. Af hazochar, va'abehema. That is to say that there was a collapse of the norms both in marriage, the union of marriage, the sanctity of marriage. The whole thing collapsed, what we call arayis. Does the Torah describe anything else that went wrong other than that? The Torah doesn't say anything. Vayomer Hashem, lo yodain ruchi ba'adam la'ilam, b'shegam hu basar, v'hayu yamav me'al ve'esrim shana. So Hashem says, I'm not going to put up with this. I'm not going to watch this happen. I'm going to give a certain amount of time, see if they can get their act together, and if not, we're going to have to reconsider here what it is exactly that we're going to do with this world. But nothing changed, and so the pasuk goes on and says, "Vayar Hashem ki rabora asa adam ba'aretz v'chol yetzer machshavos libay rak kol hayay." That the evil became greater, and that everything basically revolved around Ra. Which Ra? Does the Torah tell us any other Ra than the one that it had already described? The Torah doesn't give us any added information. It just is talking about the Ra that we described. That means that we're talking about Vayikol em noshim mikol asher bachar. Vayinochem Hashem ki asa es ha'adam ba'aretz vayis'atzeda libay. Vayomer Hashem emche es ha'adam asher barasi me'al pnei ha'adama me'adam ad behima ad remes v'adoif hashamayim ki nichamti ki asis. And so Hashem says, I have no choice. I am going to wipe out this man that I create. Why is Hashem saying he's going to wipe out the man that he created? Why? Why is Hashem wiping them out? What did the Torah tell us? Because they took Nashim Mikol Asher Bachar. Did the Torah say anything else? Nothing. That's what the Torah says. That's the end of Parshas Bereshis. In Parshas Noach, we have a repeat. Only now, things are very, very different. Because in Parshas Noach, here's how it's described. Vatishochei sa'aretz lifnei ha'Elohim. So Vatishochei, says Rashi, that's Erva, that includes Erva. Vatimolei ha'aretz chamas. And the land was filled with chamas. Now, that's a new development. Hashem never told us that at the end of Parshas Bereshis. I guess he must have forgotten. Okay. Vayomer Elohim leNoach, Kates kol basar bo lefanai, ki mal'ah ha'aretz chamas mipneihem. Says Rashi, ki mal'ah ha'aretz chamas, for the earth is filled with chamas, gezel. Says Rashi, ki mal'ah ha'aretz chamas, lo nechtam gzardinam el al ha'gezel. The gzardin of the Mabul was only sealed because of gezel. And now Hashem goes and he tells Noach that he has to go ahead and make a teva, etc. Why is this not a contradiction in the Psukim? In the end of Parshas Bereshis, Hashem already said, Emche esa'od masher barasi. And why is he saying, Emches ad masher barasi? I will wipe out man that I created. Why is he saying that? For the reasons that the Torah described, namely, vayikchu lahem nashim mikol asher bacharu. No mention of chamas at all. And Hashem says, Emches ad. That means that the Gzar Din is already there. I'm going to wipe out man. And why am I going to wipe out man? I'm going to wipe out man for the Ra. And what Ra? The Ra that the Torah has described to us, namely, Mikol Asher Bochar. Yet when we come to Parshas Noach, it's as if we're describing an entirely different event. Suddenly, Chomas now becomes the issue. Gezel now somehow becomes the issue. And the question is why? And how? How could the Torah switch and change the cause for the Mabul from that which it explicitly said, namely, Mikol Asher Bocharu, to this new thing? How does that work? And yet the Torah does this seamlessly, as if there's no problem with equating the two or considering the two to be the exact same thing. Now you see, of course, why I'm bringing this down. Because the same connection, the same association that we're seeing over here in this pasuk, im ein l'chol l'shalim, loma yikach mishkavcha mitachtecha, is exactly the same association that we're seeing here by the Mabul between Mikol Asher Bachor, which is to say the disintegration of marriage, and Chamas, which is Gezel. It's the same exact association. And so you see almost like a pattern that somehow or another, Chamas and Mikol Asher Bocharu go hand in hand. And the question is how and what is it exactly that the Torah is describing to us here? But when you see it through the lenses of the Mabul, something becomes very, very clear. And that is as follows. Yetzer, which of course is what causes the Mabul, Yetzer is only a direct outgrowth of the awareness of self. That's what Yetzer is. All of the things that I dream of, all of the things that I imagine, all of the things that I consider are all a direct consequence of the fact that I have awareness of self. This is clear. This does not need to be explained. I think this is obvious, yes? The problem with Yetzer is that there is a very fine line in the application of Yetzer. And the way that I like to describe it is as follows. One way of looking at Yetzer is that Yetzer is a mean by which I get to express myself. The other way of looking at Yetzer is a means for self-expression. And now let me explain the difference between the two. I get to express myself means that the entire point of Yetzer is that I get to be the center of it all, and that everything else is there merely for me to be able to experience everything that I could possibly experience. That's what we mean when we say that Yetzer is the means to express myself. I get to get the full self thanks to Yetzer. When we say it is self-expression, that is something entirely different. It means that I get to make myself something thanks to Yetzer. I can make myself into a something thanks to Yetzer. Not that Yetzer allows me to have all of the experiences so that I can express what it means to be a self, but rather that it gives me the tools by which I can have self-expression. Does everybody understand the difference between the two clearly? Yes? Does everybody understand? Does everybody understand what I'm saying? I'll take that as a no. Should I explain it better? Wow, I'm so shocked. Okay. If a person wishes to make something out of themselves, I wish to accomplish something. I wish to take advantage of all of the opportunities that the world offers me so that I can make myself into something. What do we call that? We call that expression of self, or we call that self-expression. Self-expression. I get to use the world and all of its opportunities as a tool for self-expression. I make myself expressed. I have done something with myself, and the world offers me the opportunities to do so. Does everybody understand that? We have some thumbs up. I can utilize all the opportunities that the world gives me to be able to experience all of those opportunities, but it doesn't make me into anything. So I get to have all the expressions in which myself is a party, but I haven't made myself into anything. I haven't expressed my own self. All I've done is I've allowed myself to have all of the opportunities and all of the experiences that they could have. The difference is, am I a nobody who has accomplished nothing and has done nothing and has made himself into nothing, versus am I a somebody who has utilized all of the opportunities given so that I can become a somebody? Does now everybody understand? Very good. Mendel, you got this? Good. I don't know what was so difficult about that. Okay, the only reason why you term it the way I did is not only because it's a funny way to do it, expression of self versus self-expression. No, because it is the perfect way to point out the very, very narrow difference between utilizing Yetzer in one way versus utilizing Yetzer in the other way. But you understand that that narrow difference takes you to literally two different worlds. Not figuratively, literally. One takes you to Olam Haba, one doesn't. Does everybody see why I'm saying this? Very good. A person who views the entire world and all of its opportunities as merely tools for him to be able to experience, that means that everything revolves only around him. It only revolves on what he can get out of it. What type of experience can he get out of this? This is not merely, oh, I'm involved in myself. This is not merely self-centered. This is autistic to a degree. There is you and only you, and everything else is just noise in the background that you get to utilize so that you can have whatever it is that you want, that you can experience whatever it is that you want. That's the way a person who is using Yetzer to express self views everything in the world. You know, I had a friend, he used to come to yeshiva for morning seder. You guys don't remember him probably. He used to be a real estate broker. He comes into yeshiva, he stopped being a real estate broker. I said, Yitzi, what's the matter? Why did you stop? He said, I'll tell you. I would go to daven in shul, and everybody in shul was a potential client. I couldn't daven like a mensch anymore, because every time I looked at somebody, I was thinking, is he interested in buying an apartment? Is he interested in selling an apartment? How much money does he got? Maybe I could get him to buy. I said, I couldn't live like that anymore. It's a true story. That's where a person is living. It's not merely that you're self-centered. It's that the only thing that matters is you, and everything else is just noise by which you get to be able to do whatever it is that you want. You get to fulfill all of your experiences, all of your desires. That's what they're there for. While as a person who is using Yetzer for self-expression, it's the exact opposite. Every single opportunity that there is out there is his opportunity to become a something. You already hear this massive difference. It's a difference literally between two different worlds. Where you utilize Yetzer to merely express self, there's no Elam Haba. Where you utilize Yetzer towards self-expression, there is Elam Haba. It's as simple as that. A person who utilizes Yetzer in the former is the type of person who will steal. It's the type of person who will commit adultery. It is a type of person who will commit all the Yetzer Machshavos Libam will be Rak Ra. It has to be. Because no matter what it is, it's going to be Ra. It can't be anything else. It's going to be just Ra. Masha'enkein, a person who utilizes Yetzer in the latter fashion, is the exact opposite, as the Torah says, "V'noyach matzachein be'inei Hashem." One has Elam Haba, the other doesn't. The Dor HaMabul have Elam Haba? Dor HaMabul don't have a chelik, Elam Haba. Memela, when a person takes a neder and he's not paying it up, it's not a penalty that his marriage is disintegrating. Of course his marriage is disintegrating. It's not a punishment. It's a fact. That's why a person's marriage falls apart. Says Rashi, it means gezel. Says Tosfos, no, it means neder. They're both right. It's 100% true. They're both right. A person who's mevachman amon for gezel and a person mevachman amon because he made a neder and he's not paying it. It's all exactly the same thing. Memela says the pasuk, "Ein adam ein ish shalot demesa and mevachman amon ve'einloi." But the key is in mishkavcha. Because how do you think he's looking at her? To him, what is she other than a mattress? The male of the Torah has no choice but to use the crass terminology. Because it's in that crassness that the explanation is being given. This is why Ishtay Shalodam is Mesa, because it's inevitable, it's impossible otherwise. He must be looking at her as merely Mishkavcha. You can't use a clean metaphor here. You can't use a clean Lashon Nakiya euphemism here. Not possible. Because the moment you do, you lose the whole power of what the pasuk is trying to convey. You know why Ishtay Shalodam is Mesa for the oven of Nedarim? I'll tell you why. Because as far as he's concerned, she's merely Mishkavcha. She has to be. Because a person who is over on Gezel and a person who is over on Bal Ta'acher and a person who is over on Nedarim, it's all the same problem. And therefore, it's for sure, without any doubt, that as far as he is concerned, she is merely Mishkavcha. Memela, it's obvious that the marriage is going to fall apart. Says the Gemara, so of course you would have had a Havamina for Baal Ta'acher also. But the Havamina is clear. Of course there's a solid Havamina that this should merit the same type of a penalty. Kamashmalon, that it's not. The fact that ultimately he's paying indicates to us that clearly that's not the flaw in the character. But the Havamina is a very sensible and logical Havamina, that it all stems from the same corruption in self. Memela, you would have had a havamina that here too. Ishtay shalom should be mesa. Kamash malon v'hoya b'chochet v'loy b'ishtay chochet. And so with this, we have managed not only to explain why it is that it's not that this is an extreme penalty for such a severe avera. It is the natural consequence for the corruption that has led to that type of an avera. We've also managed to explain why Rashi has no problem referring to it as Gezel, even though the Gemara is clearly talking about Nedarim, because at the root of it all, there's no difference between them. It's all the same. The cause for it is that you view her as mishkavcha, and a person who is guilty of not Nedarim, and a person who is guilty of Gezel, it comes from the same source, that he is utilizing Yetzer in this fashion. Memela, it is for sure that he views her as mishkavcha. So anybody who is conducting himself in such a fashion that it is clear that he views her as mishkavcha, this indeed will be the consequence. Whether I call that gezel, whether I call that not paying avei nedarim, and I even have a havamina that it should refer to Baal Ta'acher. Kamashron that it doesn't refer to Baal Ta'acher. And so with this, we have answered all of the kashas that we started with. And with this, I think we also have a much clearer understanding of what it is that the Gemara in Rosh Hashanah is trying to tell us. Wow, it's late. Okay. It's a real pleasure. One second. Let me just see all these great chats. Okay. Yes, that is the difference between Cain and Hevel. Hello, duh. Where are you, Donnie? Come on, how many times have we explained that? That's even their names. Okay. Shkoyach, quote myself back to me. Where are you, Donnie? Beat you up. He ran away beforehand. Oh, there you are, Donnie. Don't quote me back to me. Oh, wait, everybody's on what's it called? One second. How do I unmute you all? Oh, here we go. Okay, you're now all unmuted. One second.
Oh, come on.
All my words come in mediocrity. How did the Gemara and Nedarim fit into the mix? Another mitzvah with kares is proved. What are people just using this? Okay, we're gonna have to shut down the chat. What are people using the chat just to throw random things at me?
Yeah.
What are you talking about?
Rebbe said there was only two mitzvahs which were assays, which you got kores for, but there's the story in the Novi of, oh man, I've just forgotten all the names. The father of Menashe Melech Yehuda was told by the Novi, didn't do Kru Revu, you're getting kores.
That's not what the pasuk says. Go back to the parak in Malachim and reread it.
It says you're dead in, you're mace in this world.
I know what the pasuk says.
I know you know, but I'm just showing I also know.
Does not say kares. Next.
But isn't kores mace in this life and in the next life? It's one of the opinions.
Didn't I just show you that you get kares for bris milah even though it has no shaykhs to this life? Cha-ching! Yeah. Okay, next.
How's that a raya? How's that a raya? You're showing me that you get kores for one mitzvah. I'm telling you get kores for a different mitzvah.
There is no kores for non-compliance with pru or revu. Not true.
So how come the melech got it?
Excellent question.
Okay, I'll read up on it. Thank you.
Excellent question. There is no, let me make sure that everybody hears this loud and clear. There is no kores for non-compliance with pru or revu. Does everybody have that clear? Very good. Next. Thank you, Moshe. That was very sweet of you. Okay. How did the Gemara Nedarim? Because I was showing that it could work. In who wrote that? How do I scroll up? Oh, here we go. Mendel. Because I was showing that it's not the man versus the woman. It's the. Where are you, Mendel? I don't see you. Oh, there you are. I was just showing that since it could theoretically be the reverse, you see, it's not the man who takes the neder and the woman who dies. It's that there is something about the marriage that disintegrates. Therefore, it could theoretically be in either direction. She could be the one who theoretically takes the neder, and he'll be the cause of the disintegration of the marriage. You understand? Yes? You're on mute. I can't hear you. Thank you, Yoli. Next. The
Everybody sees my tactic, right?
Who's talking? Is that Donnie? Donnie who quotes me back to me while wearing workout clothing? Good thing you're not drinking Starbucks, else I wouldn't talk to you.
Thank you, Rebbe.
That's a very, very interesting question. Where are you, Yehuda Rabinowitz? Oh, that's a very interesting question, but not one that I could answer now. If you want, we could talk about it on the phone later. Okay, anything else? What do you mean? Baseball. Bishvili Nivra Ilam means exactly that. That I can bishvili, for the sake of me becoming a me, the world was created. Hello?
Yeah, I was just, sorry, my kid is being loud.
That's okay, we love kids. Especially when there's somebody else's.
So I was just asking in terms of being,
That's
saying being self.
What means that a person has to recognize that every opportunity that it presents itself in this world is an opportunity for self-expression.
Okay.
Exactly what it means. But even that is because even the fact that the question came to mind is just proves my point of how close they are and yet how far distance they take you. You understand?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. Anything else? Thank you, Nassim. I always appreciate getting more information. What does that mean? What does FY1 mean?
Information.
Oh. Okay, you know, Nassim, I don't respond to anything that uses those types of things. What are they called?
Acronyms.
Yeah, whatever. Things that are like that.
Acronyms.
But I'll forgive you this time because at least the punctuation was good. All right, you guys. No. Where's Donnie? No. No, for different reasons. But yeah, but not for now. Okay?
Okay.
But I'll give you, we'll talk about it privately. Okay. All right. Guys, it was great seeing you all. Yeah, it was great seeing you all. I'll talk to you all later.
All right.
Bye, guys.